Hi, everybody. It's John Thompson. Happy May to all of you. It's about May 15th. I have completed my graduate school at Ramapo. I'm basically waiting for my final grades. And I did want to basically show you some models I've been working on. One of them actually is a 1/350th Liberty ship that I completed. It's the John W. Brown, and it was a fun model. It was a plastic model, and I'm going to show it to you right now. I built her as a waterline model. Now, I've built this model several times before, and it did present a bit of a challenge because the hull itself did not fit together properly. There were fit issues when I made a full hull of it. For this one, I have a full hulled model with all the photo etch and all the goodies on it, but I did it as a dazzle paint. I wanted something that stood out, so I went with the gray scheme here that you see. Now, there are a couple of things that, very serendipitous for me. A couple days ago, I was about to give up on the decals because I had misplaced them. Happened to find them on top of my tool chest, and so I applied them today. The decals went on pretty nicely, except for the stern. Now, the stern I had to actually piece to get it to look right, and the unfortunate part about it was the printing was incorrect. Instead of saying Baltimore, it said Baltimore, which basically frustrated the hell out of me. So I had enough of decal striping, very thin white decal striping, and I was able to make that L that is so that it read Baltimore, and you can barely tell. If you look on the port side of the ship, you'll see it. And so I did that, and I basically just did enough photo etch just to basically give it the look. I didn't want to get too fancy or too involved with it because of the fact that one, I don't have the money to buy the Edouard photo etch set, which really should go on this. This was a good candidate for the photo etch. Once you get the hull built, it's actually not that bad a model. The only thing that I did not like about this kit happened to be the deck winches. It was a repetitive assembly. You had 5 parts for each winch, and that took a little bit of time to glue everything up and put it together. And then you had to install them on the deck. And so I basically have been trying to figure out how to reuse this model. This model was originally bought to serve as part source for a Lindbergh model I had. I built the President Wilson liner. It was a cheap Lindbergh model, and I wasn't really happy with it at the end. I did use the fittings from the Liberty ship here, which did help enhance the realism of the model, but still there was stuff that I did not like about the model, and so I took the Liberty ship fittings off of the model and put them on and decided to complete the Liberty ship. This was actually sitting in my closet for about a year or two, and so I decided to basically put it together. I was so glad I was able to find the draft marks. Now, I've also seen prototype photos of the Liberty ships where the names are painted out, and the names were painted out for a reason. The names were painted out to basically conceal where the ship was going, the ship's name, because they all looked alike basically. There was very little difference between each ship, and so it was done that way to basically maintain the secrecy of the sailings and where they were in the convoy, where they were going, and what the ship was. So that was kind of a deliberate thing on the Allied powers. They did that more. The names on the ship displayed were more in the builder's yards, and also later on after the ships were basically in peacetime. Although this ship sat in mothballs, as well as the Jeremiah O'Brien, and both of them were restored to operating condition, and as a result the names went back on the ships as part of the restoration effort, and so that's kind of what happened there with the Liberty ship. I did want to also have one criticism of Trumpeter, apart from that bad decal on the stern, which totally irritated me. My other complaint would be a rigging diagram. They show you how to build the model, but they don't show you how to rig the cargo booms. And unfortunately, when you look on the internet to rig the Liberty ship, you're going to find like 5 million different models. Each one's going to have a different rigging. Each one's going to show the cranes rigged differently. Now, I did use sewing thread in the past, a very thin sewing thread. However, I'm not very impressed with that. You get line buildup, and I wasn't happy with that when I built the President Wilson liner. So what I did, I was able to clean the thread off the parts, and I went with something better. I went with a thin brass wire, and a thin brass wire actually looked a lot nicer. It was a lot easier to work with, didn't get the line buildup. I attached it with CA, and I painted it. Now, I still have some more rigging to do. I might even do some deck cargo. I saved the propellers from the President Wilson liner. I basically stripped the whole model clean before I threw it away. And that's what I'm going to do. This one, like I said, is going to be a waterline model. And I have a full-hulled Liberty ship already, so I didn't really feel the need to build a second full-hulled ship in my collection. So this is going to go in a shadow box, and I'm going to put some pictures behind. And it'll basically kind of complete it. I'm hoping also to be getting a destroyer escort. Now, I do want to put that in the box as well, depending on the size of it, if I have room for it, because I think the destroyer escort and the Liberty ship go together very well. They were in service together in the convoys, and so I think that would be a nice little display in there. I'm still trying to figure out how I'm going to display it in the shadow box when I get it, but this is actually going to go in the shadow box probably next day or so. I'm going to make all these little changes and add a couple more details, but that's the basic model. The model otherwise, other than the things I've basically criticized on, the hull fitting and the bad decal, it's not a bad kit. The detail is good if you build it right out of the box. Photo etch, I will advise on a couple of things. There are a couple manufacturers. You can get White Ensign. They make a detail kit for this, as well as Edouard. But Edouard makes it for the Jeremiah O'Brien. Like I said, paint-wise, I went with a Tamiya Neutral Gray. I wanted the model to have that uniform color. I noticed on the box art that the ship was darker in color. Also, the painting is different on the paintwork is a lot different on the Jeremiah O'Brien as opposed to the John W. Brown. It seems that John W. Brown had a darker scheme on it, so I tried to basically go with that. I'm going to limit the deck cargo to a couple of things. I know that one of the things I'm going to limit, I was going to get 1/350th scale trucks and tanks, but I figured probably that may not be the most historically accurate, because if there was a storm, all that stuff would be subject to sea damage anyway and would probably have been better off stored in the holds of the ship. So that's pretty much will complete my video, and have a great day.